The memory of that winter does not live in a single date or a single room. It lives in a trail of small objects that learn to carry more weight than they were designed to bear. A scrapbook that began as a hobby turned into a lifeline. A dress that was meant to dazzle became a shield. A shirt torn for a joke exposed a price no one wanted to pay. A bar glass heavier than it needed to be tried to keep a room upright during a long 5 minutes. A pineapple crown taught a lesson about readiness and hospitality that no sermon had worded quite so well. A candle lit with hands that knew stoves and laundry and lullabies remembered how to say what words could not. When you line up those objects, you can trace the bunkers across a week that widened into a season and then settled into the permanent furniture of who they are. Beverly LaSalle arrived first, not because she wanted to teach a lesson, but because she wanted, like every out-of-towner on a cold day, to be where the light and the laughter were. She swept into Edith's living room with the confidence of someone who knows exactly where to place her elbows among people who will forgive any flourish. And with that confidence, she did something delicate to the air. She made it easy to be kind. Edith knew the feeling and doubled it. She fluttered and fussed in the way of women who have managed households so long that they can turn worry into welcome without anyone noticing the conversion. Archie grumbled because that is how he manages the stress of unfamiliar joy. But even he could not erase the pleasant strangeness of a room that for one bright hour looked like Broadway's dressing room and a queen's kitchen at the same time. The scrapbook appeared the way good symbols always do, without fanfare. It was glue and newsprint, and care and index of a friend's public sparkle held together by a private patience. Beverly read it as if it were an award. In a better week, the evening would have ended with leftover cake and a joke about Edith's coffee. Instead, the city reminded them that the line between a stage and a street can be very thin and very cruel. The blow that fell in the parking lot did not create a new philosophy. It simply broke something that had been holding the old one together. Mike returned with the shaken look of a man who has been shown his own face from a distance. Beverly did what brave people do without asking why bravery keeps choosing them. She moved toward danger because someone she loved was closer to it than she could stand. The hospital voice that ended that story never learns how to carry the news kindly. It gets better at being calm, not better at being merciful. Grief arrived with a punctuality that felt obscene. In the bunker house, it scattered itself according to temperament. Archie tried to regain balance with categories, words like normal used as if they were locks for the doors, only to find that categories do not bend fast enough for the speed at which real life collides with people. Gloria tried justice on her tongue and then traded it in the quiet for tenderness. Mike tried to pay a debt that can only be honored, not balanced. Edith did not argue with God. She withdrew to the porch and waited until the world offered a room in which her love for Beverly could sit without being corrected. What came next would have looked random to a stranger. A television prankster tore Archie's souvenir shirt, and a $50 bill dangled like bait to make outrage pass for humor. The bait dragged a camera behind it. The camera begged Edith to say a simple sentence and point a simple finger. All she had to do was pretend one half was brighter than the other. But Edith's honesty is not the aggressive kind that enjoys contradicting people. It is the reflexive kind that does not ask permission before acting. She pointed where the clean was. She did it again and again, despite the pleading look of a man whose job title is make pretend look plausible. The set lost its patience, then its budget, and finally its purpose. Edith gained nothing except the only thing she really cares, to keep the peace that follows doing a small thing properly, even when the world would have paid for a little complicity. When the phone rang, later offering to try again with a fresher script, she declined so gently that no one could be offended, and so firmly that no one could be confused. It is fashionable to celebrate courage when it is noisy. Edith's kind arrives on quiet feet, rejects a lie with a nod, and goes back to the stove. If one scene writes the counter melody to that gentleness, it is the Super Bowl at Archie's bar. He prepared for it the way men like him prepare for any season of hope, with numbers and glassware, with specials whose arithmetic isn't dishonest, so much as it is playful with a poster on the window that promised more than it said. The room filled the way good rooms do by degrees, with coats over chairbacks and laughter that gains confidence as it bounces from face to face. Then two men with pistols taught everyone how fast a party can become a geometry problem. The command to drop their pants was not about theft. It was about turning a room into a joke against itself. If humiliation has chemistry, it is the kind that evaporates slower than fear. Archie obeyed. For the reason decent men obey in moments like that, because a story you can live to be embarrassed by is better than a story somebody else has to tell about you. When the guns and the money were gone, the bar had to decide what kind of place it wanted to be. It chose to be a room where laughter returns at half volume first, then full, and where a ceiling patch does not need to match the old paint to count as a repair. The sign went back up, the glass felt heavy in the hand again, the cash drawer held less than it should and more than it might have. That is what recovery looks like on the scale of a corner saloon. Into the apartment, carrying neither lecture nor luggage, came Aunt Iola. She was a disruption only in the sense that a clean breeze disrupts a room that has been too careful about being still. She brought a book that made Archie blush and Edith grin, and Gloria invent new ways to tease the men in her life. She made her bed tight and her presence light. The plan had been to hand her off to another branch of the family, but plans behave like bad weather. In the neighborhoods where the bunkers live, they change. An appendectomy in a different kitchen canceled a guest room, and suddenly the spare space that isn't quite a spare room had to become a home. Archie performed his outrage like a habit he was trying to quit. Edith met logistics with lessons the pineapple trick at the top of the list. Tug a leaf. If it releases, without argument, the fruit is ready. Hospitality, she implied, works the same way. Let go of what you weren't meant to hold tighter than necessary, and sweetness announces itself. By the time the taxi came to carry Iola toward Emily's place, the apartment had been practiced into something even Archie could feel proud of, a home that can contain a guest without losing its shape. The invitation from the church rested on the table for a full day before it found its true weight. The week had already proven that no institution keeps sorrow off your porch. Still, the promise of a remembrance service felt like an offer to practice grief in a room designed not to argue with it. Edith treated the paper as if it might break, folded it, unfolded it, and finally tucked it in her purse. The same purse that has held grocery lists, cough drops loose, change for bus fare, and once long ago a letter she never showed anyone. On the evening, it mattered. She dressed the way women from her generation dress when they are about to do something simple and brave. Archie fastened a clasp and stayed silent, discovering again the usefulness of silence in moments when men cannot fix anything. The sanctuary smelled like wood warmed by bodies and wax warmed by purpose. The pastor declined the temptation to explain the world and instead offered the only sentence that felt like a bridge, that kindness had been chaste and would not be caught forever. The candles flickered like humility. Edith's match struck the first time. Fire behaved. Faith did not rush back. It found a chair. Between these larger turns, the bunker day kept its rhythm, which is the secret one learns after any hard week. The world does not slow down to match your sorrow. It expects you to carry sorrow as you move the way you carry groceries and mail and the stories of your neighbors. Joey tugged at Archie's sleeve and taught him that tenderness is a place you visit on a technicality and stay in because the room is warmer than you expected. Gloria experimented in the kitchen and learned, as every household scientist does, that some aromas invent new countries and some pots require apologies. Mike washed what needed washing and stopped stating the moral of every scene. Edith brewed coffee that sometimes overshot its mark and corrected it with sugar or humor. Either works when you remember whom you are serving. In that small choreography, plates down, lids on, voices softening just before bedtime, the apartment converted extraordinary days back into ordinary nights without insulting the memory of what had been extraordinary. Archie's changes could be measured only by the people who listened to him the most. Strangers would have missed them. He still told the same complaints, but he told them from slightly farther back, like a man giving himself time to decide whether the punchline might hurt someone he loves. In the bar, he poured without daring people to challenge the measure, and when a patron tried to build a joke on someone else's difference, Archie raised an eyebrow high enough to function as policy. He would be embarrassed to hear this called leadership. He would, however, accept the description of a room that he insists be safe for his wife to enter at any time. That is in practice the same thing. Edith's changes were easier to spot if you paid attention to the cupboards. She returned the scrapbook to its drawer, not as an act of hiding, but as an act of keeping. She found ways to include Beverly in the day that did not require capital letters, a remembered line in the clink of a plate, a corrected pronoun offered without ceremony, a tenderness extended to a stranger at a bus stop, because habit has a way of becoming principle once it has been practiced under pressure. Her refusal to do the commercial taught her nothing she did not already know. It simply reminded everyone else that a person who will not trade truth for convenience offers a kind of civic service to any room she's in. When she spoke of the church service afterward, she did not use the words closure or healing. She said, "The candle was pretty, and those who knew her heard the entire theology behind it. Beauty is a kind of permission for wounded people to keep going." Everyone else found their dimensions accordingly. Gloria kept her temper as a tool, not a hobby. She used it when a conversation required a wedge to let air in and set it down when the room had enough oxygen to breathe without it. Mike preferred to work in the background. He did not renounce his speeches. Men like him need to know the world can be argued with, but he delivered them to the mirror and to the sink and to the inside of his own rib cage, more than to the people who already understood. Joey, not privy to the weak seriousness, performed his essential function in any family under stress. He asked for simple joys and got them, thereby saving everyone else from the arrogance of believing that only large acts matter. What the household learned, though no one called a meeting to declare it, is that integrity and dignity arrive by alternating currents. Integrity is what you practice when nobody can make you lie, and yet everyone would be relieved if you did. Dignity is what you practice when somebody tries to make a joke out of your body and you decide to outlive the punchline. Hospitality is what you practice when a plan falls through and a suitcase lands in your hallway. Faith is what you practice when you light a wick and let it sit near a name you can't speak without breaking. These things are not philosophies, they are household arts, the kind you learn the way you learn to fold a fitted sheet badly and keep folding it anyway, because the goal is not elegance, but consent from the linen closet. The bar's patch ceiling never matched perfectly, and Archie decided that was correct. The sign in his window kept its ambiguous arithmetic, and he decided that was also correct. His customers understand the joke and the truth simultaneously, which is a skill the week had been trying to teach them in more urgent ways. The pineapple ripened and then disappeared into a dessert that tasted like hospitality made edible. A new shirt took the place of the torn one, not as a replacement joke, but as a garment that would not be offered to anyone's camera. The scrapbook stayed in its drawer until it was needed and then came out. And when it came out, it did not feel like reopening a wound, but like inviting a friend to sit for a while. The candle stubs collected in a small saucer near the sink. Anyone who has lived long enough knows that saucers like that are better archives than framed photographs. If you wanted the whole chain of days distilled into one picture, you could do worse than the sight of Edith at the sink after midnight rinsing a cup. She could have left for morning, pausing to touch the rim with her thumb the way you touch a forehead to check for fever. Behind her on the chair is Archie's coat, heavier than it looks, carrying the smell of the bar and the street and some road salt from a curb he didn't quite clear. On the table is a note from Gloria about a babysitting shift and a second note from Mike about trash pickup, both written like small contracts with the future. In the drawer is the scrapbook. In the closet is the red suit folded with a respect Archie would deny giving it. On the counter, a pineapple crown missing a leaf. On the windowsill, the stub of a candle that lit a name and then went out exactly when it should. The apartment is not special. It is not meant to be. It is the kind of place where the extraordinary takes its shoes off and becomes survivable.